All right. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
What's that? I didn't hear actually what's that. So good evening anyhow. Okay. So everything good? So we'll start. So last day we were discussing on the geographical regions of plant and animal assemblage. So we predominantly have looked into the plants and animal regions, and we predominantly okay, I'm repeating that. So we predominantly looked into the few regions, which is Austral plus Neogia, or the Neogia, Neotropical region of South America. These are the two regions which we focus more, and we are also looking into the other regions in a few details. So that is the thing that you have to remember in this case. Now, talking about the distribution of plants and animals, especially plants, there has been a lot of changes with respect to the distribution of plants and animals too. But plants being the primary producers, as that concept being more important. For example, if you look at some of the crops which we grow around the world today, like wheat. Wheat is found around the world today, but wheat was not a crop which was grown across the world, wheat was grown in a specific regions. Similarly, you look at potato, you look at rubber, for that matter, you look at some of the crops like maize, uh, tomato is one other good example. So all these crops are almost kind of in a way grown across the world. Potato is what it's the most important crop, edible crop, I mean food crop in Europe. So even there was something called as potato famine in the case of Ireland in 1850s. So these crops were never grown in that part of the world, which was brought in from like the case of colonialism. These all crops were brought from the Americas or the New World. These were the crops which was found there, not naturally occurring in this part of Europe or Eurasia. Wheat was there. It was there beforehand. So these were some of the crops. Now, talking about that, some of these crops are very, what do you call us, very critical for human survival. They are found in different parts of the world. Now, we have an idea called gene pool centers, which is related with this idea. So these crops are not crops which are developed in the place where we found today, but they have a place of origin. They all have a place of origin as far as their distribution is concerned. There's an area where they are found, and there's an area where they have originated. So these places of origin are known as their gene pool centers. The area in which, so what is gene pool? First of all, let's see what is gene pool. What gene is a stock of genes, the total stock of genes found in interbreeding population. See, for example, if take as example of human beings. Human beings is a single species, but within that species there are different kinds of genes which differentiate each people from the other. For example, if you look at in a more broad way, you have the different type of races. There is Mongoloid races, there is Caucasoid and the Negrito races, which differs from each other based on genes. And even the other people, like within a particular race, there is differentiation based on genes. So just like that, gene pool center is talking about plants. Okay, first of all, we are talking about plants. So gene pool is stock of genes found in interbreeding population or a single population. So gene pool centers are the concept which talks about areas on Earth surface where the currently domesticated plant varieties has originated. Plants and animals often, but mostly plants varieties have originated. In a way, you can say that these are the zones where the wild varieties of crops, domesticated crops, are found. Get me? So these are the zones from these crops are being brought about. Now, domesticated variety would be what would be a single or one or two or three varieties would be there, but the gene pool centers are what they are abound of or about of like huge variety of genes, right? There is so much gene variety. So this concept was given by somebody known as V. Vavilov. Vavilov. So he gave the idea of a gene pool centers. So it has to do with conservation efforts. So we are identifying few regions which are very important as far as the diversity or the sustainability of food production is concerned. So now these are areas of what do you call as huge genetic diversity and crops which are dominating the world today. And because of that factor, it has two importance. And mostly these are found in zones. It's not distributed across the world. There are 7 to 8 zones where huge variety of these huge gene pool variety is found. So they are the gene pool centers. Now they are very important for food security of human being and also for natural stability of ecosystem. So these are zones of basically conservation. Gene pool centers are idea of conservation where we can protect the different type of species that is found. Now Vavilov have made several assumptions. So his assumptions were based on the idea of gene pool theory was made on assumptions made by Vavilov. His idea. I think this question was asked. So every main species can be traced back to center of origin. Any particular center would be common for range of crops. That is common centers for range of crops. That gives the idea of zone because they are zones, not just single plot. And these are areas of high genetic diversity. Now, why we are saying high diversity? So these are the original places where the crops have evolved. So there will be multiple types of this particular crop. Maybe we are taking one particular type of rubber and planting it elsewhere in the world. Maybe we are taking one particular type of tomato and planting elsewhere in the world. So even if you look at banana, just take the case of banana. The bananas has evolved over a period of time. Banana is one of the most, most eaten crop. So these bananas has evolved long time. Like if you look at the pictures of banana in 1950s and say in 2020, you will see stark difference. And if you eat it, you will again see stark difference. I think വാഗോൺ ആ ഹില്ലി റീജിയൻസിലൊക്കെ പോവാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഇവിടെ ഞാൻ മുകളിലോട്ടത്താണ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഹൈ റേഞ്ചിലോട്ടൊക്കെ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കല്ലുള്ള പോലത്തെ പഴങ്ങളൊക്കെ കാണാൻ കിട്ടും. എൻ്റെ ഒരു നാട്ടിലെ ഫ്രണ്ട് ഇതൊരു വീഡിയോ ആക്കിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. സോ വൈൽഡ് കൗണ്ടർ പാർട്ട് ഓഫ് ബനാനാസ് ദാറ്റ് വി ഗ്രോ ടുഡേ. അപ്പൊ ഇതെടുത്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ ബനാനക്കകത്ത് ചെറിയ ചെറിയ കുരു ഉണ്ടല്ലോ. ഈ കുരു ഈ ബനാനക്കകത്ത് ഭയങ്കര വലിയ കുരുസാണ്. പിന്നെ നമുക്ക് ഇതിങ്ങനെ കഴിക്കാനൊന്നും പറ്റത്തില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അതിന്റെ ക്വാളിറ്റീസ് ഒന്നുമില്ല. സോ വാട്ട് ഈസ് എ ഡിഫറെന്റ് ടൈപ്പ് ഓഫ് ജെനറ്റിക് വെറൈറ്റി. സോ നമ്മളിത് പല യൂട്ടിലൈസ് ചെയ്ത് വേറെ രീതിയിലേക്ക് മോഡിഫൈ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ബട്ട് ദി വൈൽഡ് കൗണ്ടർ പാർട്സ് ഓർ the different genes of these particular crop can be found in its origin places, right? So that's the significance of gene pool centers. They are storehouse of biodiversity. So environmental degradation it becomes all the more important. So that's the idea of gene pool centers. It's basically mostly about conservation. These gene pool centers are under ecological environmental degradation, and that is the context in which we have to see them. All right. So I think we got the idea. We'll write a few things. Gene pool centers. Gene pool refers to stock of genes found in an interbreeding population. Set of all genes, stock of all genes found in an interbreeding population. That is a particular species. A large gene pool indicates extensive genetic diversity and diversity which is associated with robust population, which can survive adverse environmental conditions. A small gene pool indicates low genetic diversity, and will be vulnerable to environmental changes. Okay. Now, gene pool centers refers to next paragraph. Gene pool centers refers to areas on Earth where important crop plants and domesticated animals originate. These are areas with extraordinary range of wild counterparts of the presently cultivated or domesticated plants and animal species. Presently cultivated or domesticated plants and animal species. And hence, gene pool centers are associated with high biodiversity, with respect to genetic, species, and ecosystem levels. High biodiversity. No, biodiversity could be a different type. There could be different type of species. That is species diversity. Within a species, there are different types of genes, genetic diversity, and there are even different type of ecosystem. That is ecosystem diversity. So, biodiversity, high biodiversity with respect to genetic species and ecosystem levels. Russian biologist Vavilov identified that wild varieties of plants, identified that certain geographical regions have wide variety of Regions of wide variety species. Oh, wide varieties of plants whose counterparts are cultivated by human today. Just so I can return some students. Russian biologist V. Vavilov identified that certain geographical regions have wide range of wild varieties of plants whose counterparts are cultivated by humans today, and thus he gave the idea. He called them as gene pool centers. Okay. Now, assumptions just assumptions. First one, main species could be traced back to one particular region called as centers of origin. Any particular center would be common for a range of crops. Second point, main species can be traced back to center of origin. Second one, common centers. Any particular center would be common for range of crops, and these are areas of origin or evolution and centers of genetic diversity. Okay, so he identified 7 such centers. Okay, 7 such centers have been identified by Vavilov. So we'll write first one, South Asian tropical region. South Asian tropical center, tropical region, where crops like, that's first region, and can identify some of the crops that is developed in this region. This include rice, sugarcane, and several fruits and vegetables. So these are the parts that India, Indochina regions, India and the Indochina region. Indochina is the Southeast Asia. So, okay, so the South Asian tropical region is composed of the Indic realm, the Indo-China region. Indo-China is obviously the Southeast Asia. So these are the region where these kind of crops, rice, sugarcane, etc., have originated. Second one is Southwest Asia. Southwest Asia then originated. Any idea? One particularly important crop has originated in the Southwest Asia, the Arabian Peninsula, the Turkey, the Mediterranean basin. Mediterranean is a different one, anyhow. So yeah, so the West Asia. West Asia is famous for origin of wheat. Wheat has originated in the West Asian part. Coffee has originated in, so Arabica. We have varieties of coffee, right? So that originated in Southwest Asia. Then what? Then the third one would be the Mediterranean basin. That's another region of gene pool center. Like we had to mention the East Asia also here, so we'll type that last. Mediterranean basin. Mediterranean basin is famous for what? Olives, citrus crops, grapes, etc. Vegetable and several other vegetables and fruits have originated in the Mediterranean basin. Then you have the Ethiopian basin. Ethiopian basin is famous for some of the crops like sorghum, some of the pulses are famously found in that region. That is the Ethiopian basis. So I'm just giving you the basis. Just be familiar with it. Crops that's it. Ethiopian basin. Then you have the Central American center, American region, which is again famous for. So these are the regions of Mexico. If you look at the map here, these are the regions where you find the Central American region. It is famous for maize, some species of cotton, which is found there, beans, potato is found there. So these are the region where these kind of crops are originated. Now, after that, you have, or the next one is what you can call as the Andean region. Just keep on writing with me. Andean region. Andean region is famous for what? These are the hilly regions of Andes mountain, hilly mountainous terrain. Again, these are also regions of potato. Uh, uh, Quinine, this is something we studied in NCERTs, and tomato has originated in Central American and Andean region. Rubber has originated in this region. So again, these are other zones. So obviously, if you look at here, these would be the zones in which we see the Andean gene pool centers are originated. So several such crops are originated from the different parts. Tobacco was one such thing, right? Tobacco originated from these two zones and was brought to Europe, then to India. Tomato was brought from the Southeast Asia, from the two regions, Central American and Andean region to Europe and then to India. So this is how basically the interaction of all these crops have been found across the world today. But this has been a function of this intermixing. Okay, so we have seen several such crops. So one more is there, that is East Asia. East Asian region. That's the seventh one. East Asia is famous for like crops like soya bean, some kind of millets, and several other fruits and vegetables. So these are the regions of the world where the currently domesticated crops and their wild varieties are found. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? Now, with respect to any ecosystem, you can have ecosystem serves different purpose. We'll take up this in detail. Ecosystem powers what economic purpose, but they can be classified into services provided by, supports provided by. So we'll see it later. Okay, fine. Next classic. We'll study the framework there. But whenever you are asked about the services provided by ecosystem, there are certain services there. There are some support they are providing. There are certain products they are providing. We can write in that. And mostly when you talk about gene pool centers, this is just you have to go with me. I'm not dictating it down. So it can be viewed in two perspectives. One is a food security perspective, because all the crops that we are growing and the wild varieties are very important in the context of climate change. So even if the current variety that we have is lost, we need to have backup, and that backup is the gene pool centers. Now, natural stability. These are regions of high biodiversity, and these are also some of the biodiversity hotspots too. Right. So biodiversity loss will be leading to natural stability. It will affect the natural stability of the region. Now there are different loss of gene pool centers are a reality. Now why is the reasons? There are several reasons for that. One is natural causes. Hazards would be a reason. Then there are several other man-made causes. Man-made causes include habitat loss, basically due to destruction, deforestation, things like that, mining. Some things can be attributed. Then you have invasive alien species coming into this region, and again, this will be taken. We can take this up in the environmental part. So here we are just explaining invasive alien species or exploitation of the resource centers, pollution. Okay, all these factors are contributing to the degradation of environment. These are general factors which are contributing to environmental degradation, and they are common. The same issues are affected also the gene pool centers, right? So gene pool centers, രണ്ട് ഐഡിയസ് ആണ്, എന്താണ് എവിടെയൊക്കെയാണെന്നുള്ള കാര്യം ഓർത്തിരിക്കുക. Then how it is degraded എന്നുള്ള perspective വരുമ്പോൾ we can just use the framework. What is their significance? We can identify it from two perspectives, and this one, the framework for that, I'll just discuss in this session only. And then you have how loss of gene pool centers are occurring. For that, we can give the basic reasons as to how environmental degradation is happening. All right. After that, we have to slightly look into the. Okay, I think that is clear. The idea of gene pool centers is clear. Clearly. Okay, cool. Now, okay, so now we have to look into a small topic that is left in. It's not a small topic per se. It's a factual, simple topic that is left in the biogeography part is biomes. We have deforestation. We'll take deforestation in the environmental geography part. So biomes are one topic left. Now biomes are what basically assemblage of plants and animals. That is what biomes assemblage of plants and animals found in a region. Simply put, that's what uh, biomes are. They are ecosystems which are characterized by a particular assemblage of uh, plant species or animal species. We have discussed a few things about that already. One classification we looked at was basically the classification of what do you call as the zonation. The zones were found. Next type of identification methodology is biomes. Uh, okay, now we had discussed like biome. Any particular biome is a function of two things. That is basically it's a function of climate, and then there is basically within climate two things are important. That is the temperature conditions and the precipitation. Or precipitation evaporate combined together. We can say potentially evapotranspiration. We had studied it under the Thornwight's classification, right? The concept of potentially evapotranspiration and things like that. So temperature and precipitation and together the potentially evapotranspiration that basically decides what kind of a vegetation, what kind of a biome you would find in a particular part of the world, right? So we have this diagram. I think we have seen it in the case of GC Leo. So a couple of few areas are there. We have to understand how these biomes are there. For before that, we'll just give a classification of biomes. Biomes are of different types. Basically, biomes can be classified into forest biome, uh, grassland, shrubland, and deserts. These are the decreasing rainfall or water availability. Based on this, forest can again be classified into different groups. You have the tropical rainforest. This is the terrestrial biome. You have aquatic biomes also. But I think in UPSC, terrestrial biomes are given more weightage. Aquatic dimension questions are very low, very on the lower side. So forest biomes are of different type. There is tropical rainforest. There is tropical deciduous forest. Then you have temperate rainforest based on the climatic conditions. That is the temperature part. You can decide that temperate rainforest. Then you have the temperate deciduous forest. You also have the taiga forest. These are the type of forest you find. Now in grassland, with respect to grassland, we know the temperate grassland and tropical grassland. Shrubland is mostly the Mediterranean climate and some of the hot desert regions which is found there. Deserts can be of hot and cold desert. So shrubland is basically also the characterization of desert landscape. So these are the broad classification of biomes you can find. Aquatic biome would be comprising of freshwater biome and marine biomes. Freshwater nothing is still water and moving water would be there. Lindic and yeah, freshwater and moving water. So a river and a lake is there. Both will be having different properties, and there is also a transitionary zone in the form of brackish water. So these are the basically biomes in the nature in which biomes are distributed. Uh, Biomes are yeah. We'll write a few things about biomes, and we'll look into one or two or three biomes. ഇത് ജി എസ് നിങ്ങളെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചല്ലേ? പഠിപ്പിച്ചില്ല? പഠിപ്പിച്ചില്ല അതൊന്നും പറയാത്ത പഠിപ്പിക്കാത്തതാണോ? Tropical rainforest, savanna, അതൊന്നും പഠിപ്പിച്ചില്ല. Yes. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that we need a little more content with respect to our options. So I'll first devise a framework on the basis of which we have to study these things, and then let's see, like what we can look into 2 or 3 biomes and understand how this framework can be uh, you know processed for each one of them. And then I think you can do it on your own, like it's basically factual information. You just have to pick it from the books that is available, the NCERTs. That's enough. So first of all, let's see what all things we need to look into when you talk about a biome. Okay. Now, biome is characterized by some specific circumstances. What is biome? We know that when we are going to an answer, we don't have to basically write that because it's just an understanding. So mostly you will be asked about tropical rainforest and some aspect of it. Maybe you will be asked about grasslands and some aspect of it. So we have to identify it's a kind of biome. So you define that biome. What kind of a biome is that, and why that biome came about? Why came about? എങ്ങനെയാണ് ആ biome ഉണ്ടായത്? For example, if tropical rainforest is concerned, if concerned of tropical rainforest, basically it has been created because of large availability of water and sunshine. Now, if you look at grasslands, you can say there is a lot of sunlight and all, but because of lack of water precipitation, there is a water droughty climax. Subclimax is there. Okay, because of drought, there is restriction on the growth of plants and plants, basically. And if you look at desert, you can again say that. If you look at savanna, you can again say the case of fire climax, fire set climax. If you look at monsoon regions, you can say drought plus what seasonality of the rainfall availability. So if you look into polar region, you can say both temperature, lack of energy, and lack of precipitation can be. Precipitation is not so much, but more of lack of temperature can be cited as a reason. Now, how to identify the distribution of the region, a particular biome where all these are found. So tropical rainforest, tropical rainforest conditions. Then you have to go for, basically there are 2 aspects. There is the biotic aspect of that particular biome, and there is the abiotic aspects of that region. Now, first of all, we'll look into the abiotic aspect. That is, you look into the climate of the region. Climate of the region will explain baki sub, like the type of plants, which then plants will explain the type of animals that you have. So first, you will look into the climate of the region. You'll talk about the temperature and its distribution, precipitation and its distribution in that particular region, and how that is contributing to, again, as we talked about, that particular type of vegetable assemblage. Then you will talk about what the soil of the region. You can also talk about the pressure of the region, pressure situations, but that is not that significant. But soil of the region, very important. Soil is another factor that influences the type of vegetation that you have. Then you go about explaining the vegetation type, vegetation of the region, or the flora of the region, permanent flora. So you will talk about the different names. Of course, names. You'll talk about the biodiversity of the region. You will talk about the adaptive mechanisms that the particular plants have. For example, if you look at tropical region, you have 3-tiered or 4-tiered canopy is there. That is one system. We have the tap roots, the buttress root system that is there. So that's some of the adaptive mechanisms adopted by vegetation. So again, we look into that fauna. You look into the fauna. You'll do the same thing for fauna too. So say, take the example of grassland. You will talk about large organisms because of the availability of grass, food, and also there is carnivores because of the availability of herbivores, and they are very fast animals because in the game park, in the parkland region, you can either you have to run from your prey, so deer and all these animals will be fast runners, and then if you have to catch these one, again you have to run faster, though these are adaptive mechanisms that is found there. Tropical rainforest because there is very less place to run. And then you can talk about fauna. You can talk about the ecological significance of this region. That's very significant. For example, tropical rainforest. What is the significance of it with respect to climate change, with respect to pollution, with respect to different aspects? Again, we'll talk about the services, support, provisions, those features I just referred earlier. We'll see that. Then human interference and how the changes into the ecosystem, changes in biome. So, for example, if you look at the tropical rainforest again, one question was there with respect to human influence. Like you can say the degradation, the things happening in Amazon, things happening in the Congo, or maybe in Indonesia, plantation agriculture, lumbering, destroying the forest, grassland, Mediterranean. Mediterranean has basically seen much of its biodiversity erased. So those regions and a conclusion as to where forward, how you can improve the conditions of this particular region. For example, how to prevent degradation of the temperate or deciduous forest, monsoon forest, right? So these much should be things you must be knowing with respect to one particular biome. Okay. So we'll take up a couple of biomes and try to identify what all things are there in this framework, using this framework. So try a few things just to define what is biome. Biomes are regional groupings of plants and animals living in their habitat, plants and animals living in their habitat. Living in their habitat. Their distribution is strongly correlated with regional climatic patterns. They correspond with the ecozones of the region. They correspond with the ecozones of the region. Next point. Biomes are recognized on the basis of climax vegetation. So that would be saying forest biome, the climax community there. So what is climax and succession? We'll come to that in the next topic. But for now, they are recognized on the basis of climax vegetation. Climax vegetation, the evolution അവസാനം ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന vegetation type, that is climatic vegetation. But they can also contain associated successional communities. Associated successional communities represented by subclimaxes and associated fauna. And the concept of biomes are embracing the idea of interaction among vegetation, idea of community and of interaction among vegetation and animal population and the soil, fauna, flora, and the soil and the other abiotic components. Okay. So we'll take tropical rainforest as our first biome and see what are the different characteristics we can find with respect to tropical rainforest. So I think you can write alongside with me. Okay, what is basically tropical rainforest? They are evergreen forests recognized on the basis of climax community, that is tropical hardwood trees. evergreen forest, which has what tropical hardwood trees as their main, as the most developed stages of their developed communities in there, which are also grown, which are seen in regions of high rainfall in the tropical region. Now, if you look at the habitat as such, what are the habitat conditions? You can see different factors. There is annual temperature, average temperature, annual about 27 degrees Celsius. Range of temperature is very limited. Range of temperature is limited to about 5 degrees Celsius. Changes are there within season. So that gives you what 365 days of what growing season. Throughout the season, sunlight is available in ample supply. So 12 months or 365 days of growing season, that's very significant. Now, with respect to precipitation, normally you will see greater than 200 centimeter plus rainfall, very well distributed throughout the year. So again, that also contributes to what around the year, around the year growth season. So these are few characteristics we can learn from the habitat. So most importantly, it allows crops to be or plants to be grown throughout the year. Now, when you come to soil, we have already studied about the soil properties of the region. Soil are mainly formed by lat soils. Lat soils would mean what? These are soils of high amount of leaching, also high biodiversity, biotic activity. So biotic activity in the sense humification is very active. Lot of litter is there. Lot of litter would be there. So that would lead to high production of humus. But on the other side, these are is also highly consumed by the plant. So humus content in the net growth in the net side, humus would be found to be very low. So that's the so the soils are fertile up to what fertile till plant cover is there or vegetational coverage is there. So these are regions very good rich because they are rich in its fertility, and that's why we see a lot of vegetation there. But the moment vegetations are cut out, and then fertility will be going down because leaching would increase and also humus content will go down drastically. Okay, now these are regions of shifting cultivation. So let's like hold it for there. So vegetation is that degradation of vegetation will lead to what infertility of soil, and it's very difficult for soil to recoup fertility later on. So that is something we can look into. Now, when you look into vegetation, the most conspicuous factor about this region is there are tropical hardwood trees. Okay, which is characterized by tree canopy of trees. If you look at the region, there would be a first layer of tree which would be there. Then there would be a second layer of tree which would be growing beneath it. And there would also be a third layer of tree. Again, there would be a first layer of tree. In between also there would be a first layer of tree. So you can see the A level, the B level, and the C level. And there would be some shrubs on the ground. Okay, this is how the region is what is found. Vegetation is found to be in this region. So first layer is the emergent layer. Then the B layer and the C layer, which will be characterized by different type of. So that is one adaptive mechanism. Because of what? Because of large availability of sunlight. Different crops, different plants, different layers of plants can grow because each will get enough supply of what you call as the sunlight or energy is there. Now there are several common adaptive mechanism that is found in the region. Okay. There is one is dripping leaves. The leaves are mostly in the shape of this thing. So that what uh, water can slowly drip. So the heavy rainfall region, so water can slowly dip and doesn't allow collection of holding of water on the leaves. So water. അതേസമയം നമ്മൾ deciduous സ്ഥലത്തുള്ള leaves നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ കുറച്ചും കൂടെ വലിയ പ്രതലമുള്ള leaves ആയിരിക്കും, and the leaves will hold on to water for more time. So that is one of the it also helps in water drips and drips to the sea surface. Then that will again help into more infiltration of water into the soils. So drip leaves are one feature. Then there is another one is buttress roots. So buttress roots are there. Buttress roots would be like this. Suppose the plant is like this, there would be large, large roots which is found there. So larger resource base area, and also so you can find what call us to find minerals from the region, and also to support. These are very huge trees. So support the trees of buttress what buttress what do you call us? Buttress roots are required. Then thick barks are there. The skin of very thick barks are there. So that is to protect from the animals which is hovering around the region, and it is also helps to reduce the water loss. Those are some of the important characteristics. And the D layer is the shrub layer, and these are also characterized by different shades of then there are also characterized by most importantly epiphytes or climbers. So one important feature about this region is that it is basically large supply of energy, and to use to make the maximum utility of that, several layers of plants can be found. Now another layer which is conspicuously absent is that the grass or the herbaceous layer is absent. Why is that absent? എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് herbaceous layer absent ആയ? Why? Because very low amount of sunlight reaches the ground. Because this there is this much canopies of vegetation, then there is no practically less and less less the sunlight reaching that. Because of that, grass are less. So grass being less will, if you come to fauna, large mammals would be absent. Large grazing animals will be generally found, not found. Large mammals are not found in this region because grass are not there. So cat variety of civet sound is found. Then mostly these are areas of arboreal mammals. If you are talking about mammals, these are areas of arboreal mammals, like monkeys are there in large number. So apes, larger primates are found. Cats are found in the boundary region. Cats are found in their boundary regions with respect to the grassland. So jaguar in Amazon is there. So amphibians, lot of variety. Insecta, very high variety of insecta. Some of the largest variety of insects can be found in these regions. Now that is the fauna part. Now as far as distribution is concerned, we have to identify the distribution. Distribution can be seen in what? 3 parts of the world, right? Mostly if you look at it, you see the Amazon rainforest is the most richest region. Some part of the what do you call as the the Central America is also important for rainforest. The Congo basin is important. The Andaman Nicobar Island group of India, the Indonesian, the Papua New Guinea region. All these are the regions of tropical rainforest, very rich in biodiversity. So you can see that Amazon rainforest is there. Again, Congo rainforest is there. Asian forests are there. Some of the also the parts of Central American belt is the regions where these areas are concerned. Now, as far as we look into the degradation or the human aspect of these are very generally poorly developed region owing to the high precipitation, forested region, forested belt, tribal nature of population. All this contributes to enervating conditions, has led to what poor development and mostly backward regions. Now, these have been industrialization of these regions has been a major feature that we see today these days. That is plantation agriculture is one of the most important activity that is carried out. Plantation agriculture is mostly about soya cultivation, soya plantations, which is replacing soya cultivation and soya is mostly soya and then other like banana cultivation. All these are there. So plantation cultivation and lumbering and mining. So all these are leading to what? Degradation of tropical rainforest. So these are regions facing high environmental degradation. So that must be kept in mind. So these are the basic ideas we can have about the tropical rainforest. There can also be a comparison with respect to the different regions. For example, if you consider biodiversity, biodiversity is highest in the Amazon part. Amazon biodiversity is greater than what do you call as Indonesian, and the least of biodiversity is found in Congo Basin. And most, as far as environmental degradation is concerned, almost most of the Indonesian forests have been cleared and have been converted into palm oil. Palm fields are also another thing. Palm and soya are two plantation crops which are, you know, which are replacing the native forest there, the natural forest there. Indonesia has happened. This has happened highly in Indonesia, even in Amazon. The Brazilian part of Amazon. They are going for high rate of deforestation. There have been several controversies, and these are also regions affected by forest fire these days because of degradation of forests. Forest fires are becoming common. Another impact of degradation of tropical rainforest is leaching. Another factor is shifting cultivation, which is again contributing to degradation of these forest regions. So there are several dimensions of degradation of these forests, right? Okay, I hope that is clear. You can just add, just look into the NCERT books and some of the other reference materials. You'll get ample data to put into the different frameworks that I've devised. ഈ ഒരു ഫ്രെയിംവർക്കിലേക്ക് ജസ്റ്റ് പോയിന്റ്സ് ഇടേണ്ട കാര്യം മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ. And most of the things, climate we have studied, soil we have studied, vegetation we are studying now. Fauna we have to just look into it. Ecological significance we'll see when we study that framework. So that's basically the tropical rainforest for you. Then one more thing we look into what I think we can look into tropical rainforest, tropical grasslands would be nice. So we can also look into the tropical grasslands. Again, another region which is facing several issues. Tropical grasslands. Now, please tell me. നമുക്കറിയാവുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് ഇതിന്റെ എഴുതാവുന്ന ഫ്രെയിംവർക്ക് യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട്. പറഞ്ഞേ. ഫസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ഓൾ അതിന്റെ വെജിറ്റേഷൻ ടൈപ്പിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞു. ചേട്ടാ വോളണ്ടിയേഴ്സ് ആയിരിക്കും. ഞാൻ പേര് വിളിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യം എന്തായിരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞു. ഓക്കെ, സോ ഞാൻ പേര് വിളിക്കാം. Okay, trees interspaced in grass. So tropical grasslands are regions which is characterized by grass as the major vegetation. So we can call as a subclimax. So climax is always forest communities. So here climax is not achieved. We have a subclimax community dominating the biome. That is the grass vegetation is dominating along with some trees. Few trees are there. Now, what causes this subclimax of grass to occur? എന്താണ് grassland ആകാനുള്ള കാരണം? Okay, there is a droughty subclimax. Drought is one reason why grass dominates the region. Other thing? Any other points? Drought is certainly one point. I discussed earlier. There is fire subclimax, because fire, every season every year there is a fire, and fire would be basically destroying the crops which are not suited, or especially trees. The grass can recoup even after fire. For some trees, for even gas, this is basically what you call as, it is suited because it produces or more manure, increases the fertility of the soil, but trees are not able to recoup them. So trees have a longer growing period, so they cannot just come and regrow again as like grasses do. So fire is one thing. Similarly, there is what you call as laterite subclimax, which is laterite is basically poor nutrient soil, very poor soil is very poor in nutrient. Again, that prevents plants from growing. And there's also this grazing subclimax. Grazing, because because of these two factors, that is dominated by grass. So large herbivores are there. They will eat out the trees that is there. They would uproot the trees, and thus it became again, all this becomes it suited for grasses to grow. Grasses would dominate the region. That's why you have what you call as the grassland topography, or the tropical grassland system in these parts of the world. Now, if you look at the climatic conditions, what is the climatic conditions that we know? Yeah. ധന്യ മാത്രമേ പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ, ബാക്കിയുള്ള തുടങ്ങുന്ന റോസ്. Rose, tell me. എന്താണ് അവിടുത്തെ climatic conditions? റോസ് മൈക്കോണാക്കുന്നില്ലോ. Rose, hello, hello. റോസ് ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തിട്ട് പോയപ്പോ. ഓക്കെ.
ഹലോ സാർ,
എവിടെയായിരുന്നു?
ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു.
പിന്നെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒച്ച എനക്കോ കേൾക്കാത്തെ?
ചോദ്യം ഞാൻ ഫുള്ളായിട്ട് കേട്ടില്ലായിരുന്നു, അതുകൊണ്ട്.
ചോദ്യം കേട്ടില്ലെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ റിപ്പീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. ക്ലൈമാറ്റിക് കണ്ടീഷൻസ് ഇൻ ട്രോപ്പിക്കൽ ഗ്രാസ്ലാൻഡ് റീജിയൻ, ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ, പ്രസിപ്പിറ്റേഷൻ, കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറ.
ഡ്രൈ ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ആയിരിക്കില്ലേ അവിടെ?
ഡ്രൈ ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ആണ്. ഓക്കെ, വേറെന്താ ഉള്ളത്? അത് സിവിന്റെ ആൻസർ കണ്ടിട്ട് പറയണാണോ അല്ല പറഞ്ഞാണോ?
കണ്ടായിരുന്നു, പക്ഷെ അത് കണ്ടിട്ട്.
ഓക്കെ, എന്താണ് വാട്ട് യു മീൻ ബൈ ഡ്രൈ ക്ലൈമറ്റ്?
പ്രസിപ്പിറ്റേഷൻ കുറവായിരിക്കും അവിടെ, റെയിൻഫാൾ കുറവായിരിക്കും.
പ്രസിപ്പിറ്റേഷൻ നേച്ചർ എങ്ങനെയാണ്? ത്രൂ ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ഇയർ ആണോ? വെൽ ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ആണോ? അല്ല. we have summer concentration of rainfall. Monsoon season summer concentration of rainfall is seen, and that rainfall is also less than monsoon landscape. Monsoon we have deciduous forest there. Now think of a monsoon type of character, rainfall which is even lesser rainfall. That is only constituted in the summer season. Okay, that's why you have the dry climate there. Temperature conditions, as far as temperature is concerned, it is similar to tropical rainforest, or nothing there, nothing special there. So those are the two main conditions, and it is characterized by the shifting of ITCs. It is when ITCs is over these regions, they will get rain, and when ITCs is away from them, you will not get much of rain. So that's what basically the drought climax means. Greater drought situations than the other parts of what do you call as the tropical regions, monsoon, and no. When it comes to tropical desert, the rainfall would be even. So it can be said as a transition zone, because you have desert, then savanna. Within savanna, there will be like different type of savanna. Like for example, grass savanna would be there, shrub savanna would be there, woody savanna would be there. Woody savanna would be region of woodlands. More trees would be there, and then you have the deciduous forest. Right. So there will be gradations within the vegetation that you find in savanna. That's one voice breaking. Yeah, all right. Okay, so that's basically the gradation. Now, if you talk about the climaxes again, few things: drought, winter season, very dry. Because now the winter, no, that's it. That's how to be invoice on all this. Yes, no. That's what I think say. And sort of see, confirm jobs in Matro. Breaking. What's that? Can you hear me properly now? Okay, so there is something to do with the headset, I guess. Just trying it, I guess. All right, how about now, Subin? Is it over now? Okay, fine, I guess. All right. So we have different type of climaxes. Obviously, we know drought climax because of winter dry season. Now, one laterite and because of dry and wet spell, interspaced dry and wet spell. We have talked about what that basically leads into laterization. Laterization is a form of desilication, and when dry and wet spell is interspaced with the rainfall is interspaced in that way, it leads to more laterization. As far as fire is concerned, the dry period winter, but winter is not necessarily winter per se. You don't have a winter season there. You have the summer all around the year because it's a tropical part. So temperature, but rainfall is very limited. Now, when temperature is high and rainfall is very limited, the conditions are dry. The plants would be dry, and there is high probability of fire. And thus, fire would degrade woody savanna into grassland savanna, because woods plants will not be able to survive these conditions. So these are some of the major things that we can see about this part of the world. Now, if you go about looking into the fauna, these regions, flora we have already seen. fauna is very rich fauna, very what culturally significant, or some of the regions which are very famous animals there. So mostly grazing animals found, grazing animals plus carnivores. Some of the largest mammals on the earth is found in this region. That is again a critical point about uh, these parts. There are different types of grazing animals. For example, if you look at animals graze on the land, animals graze on even the on the canopy, because you know the kind of giraffe situation here. Giraffe grazes uh, on the what do you call us again? On the canopy, from the canopy, from the tree canopy. There is things like camouflage. Camouflage is one main aspect. Like for example, if you look at the case of zebra, zebra has particular kind of body pattern which prevents it from attack from the prey, because every cheetah will, every zebra would be having this particular pattern, and the zebra when they are in the group, basically the animal will not be able to identify one particular individual, and it can and predators can only focus on one individual. So when they're moving in group with this similar pattern, they can survive the onslaught of basically the prey. Okay, and several other things are there, and then there is migration with ITCZ. These animals migrate with the ITCZ so that they can be in that region where there is more rainfall is found, and that are some of the most important behavioral adjustment these areas have seen. There are different type of when you're talking about vegetation itself, you have different type of vegetation. For example, there is elephant grasses, tall, high grasses, elephant grasses, and also you have the tussock grasses. There are the two type of grasses which are found. These are going up to 6 to 3 feet height, 3 to 6 feet high, so very tall. That is one thing about the animals. So, as far as animals are concerned, we know the different type of animals. Just write them, like we have the tigers, we have the lion, we have the elephant, we have the a number of things we can write about that. So that is there. Now the type of savanna, if you look at the type of savanna and distribution of savanna around the world, you can see several type of savanna. There is African savanna, which is also known as the Sudan type of climate, Sudan and the sub-Saharan Africa. The Sahel region are all having the savanna type of climate. Then there is the Australian savanna, which is found in the eastern seaboard of Australia. That's another part. Similarly, you have the South American savanna, which is found in the name of the Llanos of the Venezuela, that northern South America, and the southern hemisphere, Dan Chaco. All these regions are again regions of Llanos and Campos. Sorry, Llanos and Campos. These are the savanna that is found in the South America. So that's about the distribution of the planets. Now, as far as anthropogenetic and degradation is concerned, these are regions of what? Hunting. So that has impacted, hunting has impacted biodiversity. These are regions affected most by climate change vulnerable region. For example, desertification is one of the main issues that is found there because of its raw rainfall and arid conditions. Savanna landscape is being converted into desert. So you can see Sahara desert invading into the regions of savanna area. If you look at Africa, if you look at Africa, you have the Saharan desert. Surrounding the Saharan desert would be the you have the tropical rainforest region. So these all will be the regions of savanna. Now, what is happening is that the desert is invading into all these regions. So these region is known by the name of Sahel. Sahel region, sub-Saharan African region, which is savanna, which is facing desertification. Desertification is facing in this region, and that lead to conflicts. A lot of conflict can be found in this region for basic resources. When you have no human resource, no natural resource to sustain yourself on, you will turn into whatever economic opportunities that is there. Maybe that is jihad, maybe that is terrorism. So you find of all kind of terrorist activities happening in this region. Though Boko Haram is the most famous one. There are several other outfits like that. So sub-Saharan Africa has been a region of ecological degradation, and ecological degradation has led to all kind of problems in this region. So that can be written. Land degradation is found. Wetlands are going dead. Most important case study would be the case of Chad Lake, which is going dry. Chad Lake is a lake which is on its cover is on the basins are different other countries. So when Chad is shrinking, that will impact the whole the population in that region. That's what led to terrorism and things in that particular part of the world there. So savanna landscape is one of the worst affected by human interference and climate change, things like that. So that is something you can keep in mind. Okay, so I think this is the perspective in which we have to basically do cover the biomes, and then we can do the rest of ones, because anyway you will be studying these for filling. So that would be kind of time where you have revise these things. So I think also I'll prioritize a couple of biomes which are very important from UPSC perspective. The important biomes include, not necessarily in the order, but I just list on that like that. Tropical rainforest is very important. Savanna is very important. Tropical deciduous forest, that is a monsoon region, is very important. Then you have the steppe climate, that is again very important. Mediterranean is slightly important, I would say. 5 would be desert, slightly important. So these are the main regions. Taiga, tundra, all that are not very important. Tropical temperate deciduous forest, not very important. These are the regions you might focus on. Tropical rainforest, and within that, I think a couple of ones are more important. That is, tropical rainforest is very important. Savanna is very important. I think these two are the most important ones. Steppe would be important. Desert and Mediterranean would be lesser important as far as things are concerned. So we must look into it, identify the different properties that we have discussed in the same order. For example, when you look into desert vegetation, we have to identify a couple of species of plants which are very famous, like the elephant and tussock plant, tussock vegetation. In the desert region, we have the cacti, acacias, xerophytic vegetation, which is most commonly found. Adaptation includes something like nocturnal hunting, nocturnal, like that is nocturnalism. Then there is estivation, which is summer sleep, and different reptiles are dominant. Reptiles are more dominant than mammals in that region. So secretion of urine as urea, like urea deposition. So absence of sweat glands. So different type of adaptations can be found. So that is how you go about the different vegetation. So as far as Mediterranean is concerned, you know about the shifting wind belts, which is a causeway, shifting wind belts, which produces the Mediterranean climate. The westerly region changes. That's how the Mediterranean basin is created. So I think we know that. So steppe, when you look at steppe, you have to identify the different regions. Like for example, Pushtas is there, Veld is there, Downs is there, prairies is there, Pampas is there, Manchurian plains is there. So the different ones. What are the specific features? Obviously, yes, that is again a droughty climax. Water is less available, so more grassland is there. But the grasses are more nutritious. It's not like the savanna landscape, where the grasses are not very nutritious. So you have a lot of wheat cultivation happening there, and recently populated with the finding of wheat cultivation, extensive cultivation. These regions were populated. So otherwise, this was very scarcely populated early. So those are something we can write about these topics. Okay, fair enough. Forestry topics പഠിപ്പിച്ചാണോ? Forestry, social forestry, agroforestry, what is that? Okay, fair enough. So we don't have to go into that. That has been dealt with. So I think we have covered biogeography. Soil has been covered. I think soil erosion and degradation will always be taken anyhow in contemporary geography. Right. So animal factors, we have seen that problems of deforestation and conservation measures will be seeing. We'll be seeing that gene pool centers have been covered. All right. So the next one we have is environmental geography. Environmental geography, as I said, is a more limited pattern of questions. The pattern of the questions that are being asked is very limited. So, and even some of the major issues like, for example, global and regional changes and imbalance, mostly climate change. We all expect questions from climate change and things like that, but very few questions have been asked in that regard. So, principles of ecology, few questions were asked. Human ecological adaptations, very few questions. This year there was a question asked. So again, that becomes important. So I'll just split the topic into different aspects. This is basics of ecology. Then human ecological, so man and environment, global and regional changes and imbalance. This would be the regions where man and nature interaction. Man's influence on nature and nature's influence on man and the outcomes of it being explored in that part. And in that context, you have to manage the environment, environment management and conservation, degradation, management and conservation, biodiversity and sustainable development. These are the topics. All these regions are a single topic: environmental policy, hazard, remedial measures, and administrations. These are the steps that needs to be taken, the issues created, and the measures to be taken. So those are the three parts to it. One is basic core ecological concepts, the different phenomena, principles of ecology. Similarly, the second one is how man and nature is interacting with each other. This is less number of questions. And here again, randomly questions are asked. Sometimes questions are asked about the trends of deforestation. Sometimes you can ask about the trends of landscape degradation. So we will try to see a few of the issues there. Sustainable development is a very, very important topic within that. So sustainable development and environmental policy can be seen in detail. Environmental hazards, not I think very much. Environmental education and legislation, very few questions have been asked. So basically, this stone talks about the approaches, the principles of ecology, like how the man and nature relationship are thrown about, and how can we manage the issues that are found there. That is basically what the concern about environmental geography. So we'll try to see that. Today we'll see the principles of ecology, which are the about 10 principles are there. We'll try to see what are the principles and how ecology, environment is significant for human beings. That's what we're gonna see today. Okay. So we have studied almost all of the aspects. Like we have studied about the 3 spheres. In fact, we have studied about all the 4 spheres. These 3 spheres converge to form what? The biosphere. We know the biosphere has been there. We also studied about the land, water, and air. We have also studied about the biosphere. Now, the biosphere, within the biosphere, the anthroposphere is expanding, and the rest of biosphere is shrinking. So that's what we basically see when we talk about environmental geography. It is the shrinking of biosphere and the expanding of anthroposphere that is causing several disabilities or several new dynamics in the man-nature relationship is basically what the concern of environmental geography is all about. Okay, so to study that, we have to basically cover a few of the basic information about environmental geography that would have to be doing with the basic principles of environment and ecology. Okay, so we'll I think we'll just go dictating and simultaneously explaining these things. There is some of the principles are basically simple ones, so we'll try to write down first one and firstly, and whenever complexity arises, I'll explain that. So first one is concept of ecology. Where are the messages? Okay, so what is ecology? Roshin, the ecology എന്താ? Environment and ecology. Take one. Yeah.
ഓർഗാനിസംസും എൻവയോൺമെന്റ് തമ്മിലുള്ള ഒരു ഇന്ററാക്ഷൻ നടക്കുന്ന
All right. Yes. Exactly. So, principles of ecology. We'll start with what is the concept of ecology. Just right as Roshan said. Ecology is a study, or you can say the science that studies the interdependent science that studies, that studies the interdependent and mutually reactive, the dependent and mutually reactive relationship between the organisms and their physical environment. Organisms and their physical environment. On one hand, organisms and their physical environment on one hand, and between the organisms themselves, on the other hand. That's basically ecology. Now, ecology is the study of ecology is based on several principles. First principle would be the principle of uniformitarianism. Uniformitarianism is the principle of uniformitarianism. You might have seen that in geomorphology. So, what is the idea of uniformitarianism? And then uniformitarianism. What is it? So the principles can be asked as like 10 markers. So we have to just basically know what the things are, what the basic idea. Some of the principles are very important. For example, some of the later principles like the complex principle, energetics, homeostasis, natural selection. All those are complex. The initial ones are simple ones. Principle of uniformitarianism has been studied in geomorphology. That talks about what the laws and processes of nature is the same, has remained the same, or can be seen in any part of geological history. Only their rates and rate of occurrence change. So something that is some particular phenomena that is happening today will be happening the same impact in any other time period. For example, if you have the issue of ecosystem instability would lead to different factors, different processes, which would be same in a Precambrian period. So the laws in which the nature in which they act would be the same, only their rate differs. For example, it's best explained in the case of geomorphology. When rainfall happens, precipitation is there, that leading to running water, and running water would lead to what? Erosion. That is same across different geological periods. Right. So that is the idea of uniformitarianism. We'll just write a few words. The principle of uniformitarianism refers to means what? So this was given by geomorphology. That was a foundation principle for geomorphological studies. What we said? Okay. Maybe. The physical and biological processes. It refers to the physical and biological processes and laws, physical and biological processes and laws which operate today has also operated in the geological time, has also operated throughout the geological time. So also operated toward the geological time and will also operate in the future. Although not necessarily with same intensity as of now. Now, what is the unit of ecological study? Second principle is the unit of ecological studies is ecosystem. Ecosystem is a fundamental unit of ecological studies. it's a concept which brings together. Ecosystem is a concept which brings together biotic and abiotic components. Brings together biotic and abiotic components into one system, thereby facilitating the study of interaction between them. So ecosystem is a basic principle. Ecosystem can be as large as a single, a fish tank where one fish is living, or it can be as complex as an ocean. It can be as simple as for a plant or a single plant and the single tree and the animals living in it. And it can also be as complex as a tropical rainforest, as big as the Amazon. So ecosystems, the scope of ecosystem, the scale of ecosystem can be as small, is as very small and as very large. So that is the idea of ecosystem. Now the next one is the principle of mutual reaction. Mutual reaction means what? The organisms react with each other. Environment and organisms react with each other. So all living organisms and their environment all living organisms and their environment are mutually reactive and affect each other in various ways, positive, negative, or neutral. So environment can affect the living beings and not just environment, but the environment can affect the living beings, and the living beings can, and conversely, the living beings can also affect the environment and change it. So environment changes the ecosystem, the environment changes the living beings, and living beings changes the environment. So it's a two-way process. Within the living beings, we have the different biotic interaction happening. So that can be mentioned in this part, the positive, negative, and the neutral biotic interactions, the symbiosis, and the competition, those things like that. So I'm not going to write that again here. We know that. So the biotic interaction can be mentioned in this slide. So please note that down. The fourth principle is the principles of energetics. Energetics states that there is sun. So from sun, energy is received. You have the primary producers, the autotrophs. They will be converting this energy, and they will be transferring this energy in the form to the primary consumers. Then there would be the secondary consumers. And usually there would be a tertiary consumer too. There are usually food chain extensive tertiary consumers. In each stage, about 90% of energy would be lost, and only 10% is transferred. So that's the principle of energetics. Energy is transferred from one organism at one level to the next. So it is 10% again, 10% again, lost 90%, lost 90%. So that's what the principle of energetic means. So we'll write a few things. Energy is the driving force of an ecosystem. The energy is the driving force of an ecosystem and is mainly sourced from the solar energy. The flow of energy in an ecosystem is unidirectional. Flow of energy in an ecosystem is unidirectional and non-cyclic. Unidirectional and non-cyclic in nature. Cyclic in nature. Unlike the unlike the nutrient cycle, which is a cycle, nutrient
unlike the biogeochemical cycles, which is cyclic in nature, but the energy just transfers, moves from one organism to the other and never comes back. So we are to write about the trophic levels also. As energy moves from one trophic level to the other, lion's share of energy is lost. About 90% of energy is lost, and only 10% of energy is transferred to the next successive levels, trophic levels. However, the organisms at higher trophic levels can receive energy from more than one trophic levels. And thus, the probability of organisms to depend exclusively on one organism, one source decreases, and thus chances of survival increases. Plants, herbivores, carnivores. That's good. Also, there is another. Right. So, relative loss of energy is loss of energy is progressively greater at higher trophic levels. Okay. The relative loss of energy is progressively greater at higher trophic levels. Greater at higher trophic levels because species located at higher trophic levels are mobile. Species located at higher trophic levels are more mobile and have higher body size and are larger in size. Now the next one is the principle of productivity. Productivity refers to how much the energy is converted, the rate of rate of conversion of energy. That's what principle of productivity will depend upon what two things, that availability of solar energy, we have discussed that earlier, and also the efficiency of plants in converting this energy. So those are the two factors which is the principle of the principle of productivity is saying. So principle of productivity, again, just write that. Primary productivity refers to primary productivity refers to the rate of growth of energy for organic matter per unit time, or organic matter per unit time by autotrophs at trophic level 1. That's what primary productivity is. Through the process of photosynthesis. And then primary productivity depends upon two factors. Availability of amount of solar energy to primary producers. Availability of solar energy to primary producers. Second one, the efficiency of plants to convert solar energy to chemical energy. Solar energy declines. The available solar energy declines towards the poles. Towards the poles, and is followed by decrease in primary productivity. Followed by decrease in primary productivity in that direction. Generally. Efficiency of utilization is dependent upon efficiency of utilization is dependent upon the genetic makeup of the plant species. Dependent upon genetic species or makeup of the plant species, where some plants will be more efficient than the others. Okay. Now the next one we have is the principle of biogeochemical cycles. So there is transfer of two things. There is energy transfer, and there is the transfer of matter. So energy, principle of energetics, what we have studied, it is unidirectional, it is not cyclic. Whereas matter is recycled. Matter is cycled between. For example, if you look at carbon dioxide would be converted into what? We convert into organic matter. What is basically tree? Look at a tree. That's organic matter. Then that will be converted into coal or dead fossils. Fossils will be converted into coal or fossils. You can say fossil. Then again, this would be what? It would be converted back into oxygen through burning. So this is the biogeochemical cycle. So the way in which particular matter is existing in the biosphere, in the earth, is changing. So that's basically what the biogeochemical cycle. And there are different type of cycles. There is gaseous cycles. There is sedimentary cycles. There is hydrological cycle. Different type of cycles are there. Some are purely glacial. Some are purely sedimentary. For example, things like phosphorus are mostly sedimentary. Right. So we'll see that. Just right. The chemical and organic substance. The chemical and organic substance that are circulated among the various components of biosphere, through a series of closed system of cycles. So energy is not going outside, right? So that is a closed system. Closed system of cycles are collectively referred to as biogeochemical cycles. This circulation occurs in such a way that the total mass of these substances remains almost the same. And are available to organisms. And the cycles are important. In the fact that these substances are required by organisms. For their survival. Okay, so I don't want to read too much into that. So there are three types of cycles I can write that: the gaseous cycle, the sedimentary cycle, and the hydrological cycle. Noisy cycles are a combination of the two. So if you look at carbon dioxide itself, it has components of both gaseous and. If you look at the gaseous component, basically I talk about the sedimentary cycle mostly. So if you look at CO2, CO2 can be converted into O2 through photosynthesis, and O2 can be converted back into CO2 through respiration. This is one of the main processes that are happening. So purely for gaseous cycle. Okay. Now the next one is principle of natural selection. So sometimes you are asked about, I think there was one question about the cycle, the biogeochemical cycle, and you have to write about sedimentary cycle or something. So we can do that. Sounds good. Principle of natural selection. Now we know, mostly we know what is natural selection. There are different type of genes and different type of organisms are there. Some of the genes are advantages, some of the characteristics or attributes are advantages, some of them are disadvantages. And in the natural selection, the organism which have advantages over the other survives. Okay, that's the process of the nature selects the more advantageous or more the better species. That's what natural selection is. Now we'll just see. Darwin postulated the principle of evolution of species 1980s, 1985. Sorry, 1859. Sorry. Darwin postulated the principle of evolution of species. Evolution of species by the process of natural selection. By the process of natural selection, where the heritable variations in genetic composition of a population, where the heritable variations, inheritable variation, that is passed on from one generation to the other, that is heritable variation. In the genetic composition of a population, forms the basis of evolution of species. Some of the main principles involved are: one, heritable variations are present in individual species. There is heritable variations, variations which can be passed from one generation to the other are present in individual species. These heritable variations provide certain characteristics, which can become advantages to some individuals in the struggle for survival. And which can provide better chances of survival and reproduction to that species. Better chances of survival and reproduction to that species. These advantageous characteristics are passed by organisms to their offsprings. Due to which the succeeding generation becomes superior and more efficient in the struggle for survival. And individuals which lack advantageous characteristics, most likely to be eliminated in the face of competition from superior species. Thus, through the process of natural selection and adaptation, gradual adoption and diversification of species occur over a long period of time. Okay, so we have seen few things like last we came to evolution, and now evolution is a gradual process, as Darwin has said. Now there is the idea of mutation, which is again a kind of a sudden process. Explore mutation. Mutation occurs, those heritable variations. A new variation would be introduced, which would be advantages, which would be disadvantages to the species. So that mutations are accidents that occurs in the evolution process, which change the course of evolution. So Device, compounded this one, Device has challenged the Darwinian concept of progressive evolution of species. Device challenged the Darwinian concept of progressive evolution of species on the ground that sometimes the offsprings differs from their parents, so markedly that an entirely new species evolves within a single generation. So it is not a gradual process, as we been saying. Within that, into one particular generation, there can be sudden and conspicuous changes, marked changes. Evolves within a single generation. This phenomena is known as mutation. Example, interbreeding can lead to mutation. Normally, interbreeding is not done, but when interbreeding happens accidentally, it can lead to mutation. For example, donkey plus horse has led to a creation of a new species, or led to speciation in the form of mules. Donkey plus horse. Okay, so we have a couple of two or three more principles are there. Principle of succession, which is very important. So we'll leave that for tomorrow, because succession is an idea, is one of the most probable. Principle of succession is there. Principle of homeostasis is there. These are the two ideas which are most significant of principles in the ecology perspective. Succession talks about how the environment, especially plant in a biome, evolved from a simple lichens or a very primitive plants, maybe algae, to very complex species, complex biomes. And after that, we see homeostasis, how the different relationship between these different organisms has produced a state of equilibrium or balance, and how the impact of any impact of one particular species or one particular unit will have impact on all other species around it, and will lead to what? Ecosystem imbalance or equilibrium, or the breaking of equilibrium. So that is the idea of homeostasis. This is a very important concept. We'll see it tomorrow. So all fine till now. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. All right. Tandu later I look dear. Okay, that's not fair. Anyhow, so we'll conclude today. We'll take up the environment portions tomorrow also, and probably by the after tomorrow we'll be able to cover environment, and some of the portions that are left we'll take up that too, and then we can hold say that geography has completed finally. So, yeah, 2 or 3 days we have to discuss 2 more crucial concepts, and then we'll be able to conclude the session. Okay. So we call today then. Good night.